Okay, let's jump right in. We're going to talk about a single piece of legislation that has, pretty quietly, redrawn the lines of power in one of the most volatile regions on the entire planet. This is all about the Taiwan Assurance Implementation Act.
So, yeah, you heard that right. Forget what you thought you knew, because one new law has basically rewritten decades of policy in the Indo-Pacific. And believe me, the aftershocks are only just starting to be felt.
So first up, let's look at the law itself. You know, if you just read it on paper, it looks like a pretty minor update. But in the world of international relations, sometimes the smallest details can change absolutely everything.
And this is the day it all happened. December 2nd, 2025. That's when the Taiwan Assurance Implementation Act was signed into law in the United States. A very specific date for a very specific and, as we'll see, a hugely impactful shift in policy.
And here it is. This is the core of it. The change seems almost ridiculously simple. The old way of doing things required the U.S. State Department to review its guidelines for relations with Taiwan just once. That's it. This new law, it mandates that review has to happen at least every 5 years, and the results have to be reported to Congress. That one tiny change moves the whole relationship from, a one-off adjustment to a permanent recurring process.
And that small bureaucratic change was met with this: an immediate and incredibly severe reaction from Beijing. They called it a violation of the red line in U.S.-China relations. So the big question is, why? Why does turning a single review into a recurring one trigger such a massive response? Well, to get that, we need to look back a little bit.
To really understand the backlash, we have to look at the history. I mean, this new law didn't just appear out of nowhere. It's a direct challenge to a policy that's been in place for more than 40 years.
So way back in 1979, the U.S. made this enormous pivot. It officially recognized the People's Republic of China and in the process cut formal diplomatic ties with Taiwan. To manage this whole delicate situation, it created something called the Taiwan Relations Act. Then, a few years later, it gave Taiwan these 6 assurances, promising things like continued arms sales. But for decades, the relationship stayed officially unofficial. It was a really delicate balancing act. This new law in 2025, well, it fundamentally changes that by institutionalizing the relationship, making it a permanent fixture of U.S. foreign policy.
And this entire dance was governed by one core concept: strategic ambiguity. The whole idea was to keep everyone guessing. By not explicitly saying, yes, we will defend Taiwan, the U.S. hoped to keep Beijing from attacking, while at the same time discouraging Taiwan from, say, formally declaring independence. It was a strategy built on intentional vagueness, all to maintain stability.
So with this new law kind of chipping away at all that ambiguity, how is the new balance of power shaking out? Let's take a look at the key players involved. You can see the ripple effect right away. For Taiwan, this is a huge win. They don't just see it as support anymore, but as a real strategic partnership. It's like an institutional shield against pressure. For China, it's a direct challenge. They see it as a step towards the U.S. abandoning ambiguity and just violating the One China framework. And for the rest of the world, especially allies like Japan, it's a massive signal that the entire security structure of the region is being rewritten, and now everyone has to recalculate their strategies.
And this is the crucial point. We're not just talking about a single bill passing through Congress here. This is something much, much bigger than that.
This is because the act isn't just for show. It's not a symbolic gesture or some kind of performance for the cameras. It has real, tangible, and long-lasting consequences baked right into its design.
Think about it. By forcing a review every 5 years, the U.S. is embedding its commitment to Taiwan into the very machinery of its government. It makes the relationship way less dependent on the whims of any single president or administration and turns it into a permanent, institutionalized process.
And when you add all that up, what you get is a fundamental transformation of the entire region's security architecture. All the old assumptions are basically being thrown out the window, and the ground is shifting under everyone's feet.
So what makes this a real game changer? Well, first, it creates that permanent institutional link we talked about. Second, it builds a formal framework for deeper cooperation on pretty much everything, from diplomacy to security to economics. And third, it's designed to be an institutional shield, making it that much harder for Beijing to use coercion and pressure to try and isolate Taiwan.
But, this new law closes one chapter only to open a brand new one. And this next one is filled with some critical and right now unanswered questions.
So what happens now? What's this deeper cooperation actually going to look like in practice? Is China's response going to be diplomatic, economic, or something more?
And how do other countries in the region, allies like Japan and South Korea, adapt to this new reality? And maybe the most important question of all, how does Taiwan itself navigate this new landscape, balancing its own defense with its democratic values? These are the huge questions that are going to define the next few years.
And it really all boils down to this. Has this law created a new, stable equilibrium in the Taiwan Strait, or has it just lit the fuse on a crisis that could spiral completely out of control? The answer isn't written yet, but one thing is absolutely certain. The game has changed, and the world is holding its breath to see the next move.